Welcome to the Truth Unplugged, the podcast where faith meets real life. I'm Nicole, here with Father Tim, our pastor, and Father Michael, our parochial vicar. Together, we're diving into your questions about Catholicism life and everything in between.
Whether you're a lifelong Catholic or just curious, this is a place for honest questions, relatable stories, and hopefully a laugh or two along the way.
So grab your coffee or keep both hands on the wheel, settle in, and let's tackle today's questions. Welcome to the Truth Unplugged.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to our podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Nicole.
I'm Father Tim.
And I am Father Michael, recently recovered from a deadly virus.
What did you have?
I had like COVID, bird 18 flu with a cold. It was terrible. It was a whole week of really being badly sick. So thanks, everybody, for your patience and your well wishes and your prayers and the, offer of 18 different soup recipes.
And now you get all the masses this weekend.
That's right. Yeah. I was so sick that I actually had to get Father Tim Father Tim was gracious enough to cover my masses. Like I barely was able to concelebrate.
It worked out well, though, because I canceled the 8 o'clock mass because it was several weeks ago when there was the snow, and I wasn't sure if it was going to freeze over again, and I didn't want people driving in the on the icy roads.
The ice.
I would like to point out that was a very good call. It was very prudent, and it had nothing to do with Father Tim not wanting to get out of bed in the morning for Mass.
It didn't. He was actually being wise.
No, I know. It really was. It was good.
So last time we predicted the snow, and I think you said there was going to be none.
Yes,
and you were so wrong.
I was very wrong. But here's the thing. Okay, I was glad to be wrong. It was a win. I was setting myself up for a win-win. Mm-hmm. Either it didn't snow, and I'm clairvoyant, and I knowing of all things, or I was wrong and it snowed, and we got a snow day. Who doesn't love a snow day? So it was a win-win for me.
You were really certain, though.
Totally happy.
And it's on the record.
The snow day was fun, though. We made pasta bolognese.
Oh,
it was definitely a slow
too.
sauce. It was a slow sauce day.
That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think I promised a Stella story last week and didn't get to it. So if you don't know my youngest daughter, Stella, she is a
fireball.
Fireball is a good word. But last week she grabbed our 6-ounce jar of cinnamon and, she's 2. She climbed up on the counter while I was busy and she pulled it down and she took it downstairs to her little play kitchen and she poured it all in the microwave and then sprinkled it around the basement. And so our entire basement smelled like cinnamon. And that's just like a glimpse into my life.
How do you clean up cinnamon when it's...
I opted for the vacuum method.
But does it still smell cinnamony down there?
It does. And she had a little friend over while this happened, and she rubbed it all over his face, and his skin reacted to it. It was a whole situation.
So is his mom never going to let you?
She was like, "Oh, it's good for him."
I saw a video of a little kid in like a laundry room who pulled down what looked like a 5-gallon bucket of paint primer.
Oh.
And it spilled. And of course, he thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And so he's spreading it all over, all the appliances, gets out into the kitchen, fills up the floor. And I just think to myself, I never had to live through that.
And you never will.
Mm-hmm.
You're really fortunate.
I'm reminded every so often, there's this picture that Father Paul took of me when we were in Athens when Claire flipped the whole litter box over in my bathroom. And
cats are the same as children.
And she had,
exactly.
It was when she was super fat.
Pet kids.
And super, super long fur, and I had to comb it all out.
Are you trying to relate to me right now?
No, I'm just saying this is the closest possible thing that I can.
You're right.
The cats have grown out of the pram though, out of their
little strollers.
The strollers, yeah, they've grown out of that. They walk on their own now.
Probably the only thing that cats and children do that's equally annoying is throw up on your pillow.
and meow incessantly, right?
My kids do meow sometimes. So we're in the thick of ordinary time, which means, well, not the thick, really the beginning. We're back to ordinary time.
In Latin, it's tempus per annum, time during the year. We call it ordinary time in English for some reason, meaning more like ordinal, like keeping track of time, because we go first week, second week, third week. So it's not meant to be
special time.
Yeah, it's not meant to be like, oh, it's just ordinary. So, we can not do anything important. It's time keeping track of time.
Speaking of ordinary, our question today has to do with navigating doubt and spiritual dryness, which I feel like is a good, like ordinary time is a good, I feel like that happens more in ordinary time.
Well, the last
Because
time,
it's just usual.
the last time we brought this up, it might have actually been in our first episode, talking about the prayer life, and we talked about seasons, right? Seasons in our prayer life, and the church. I mean, this is the wisdom of the church. We have, Father Tim was explaining, we have the liturgical seasons, and it's different times to plant and to harvest, and maybe ordinary times the time to do like spiritual maintenance on the garden of your soul. I mean, maybe not. I'm just spitballing. But dryness is a part of the life cycle of a garden, of a land. You have rainy seasons, dry seasons.
Sure.
Dry seasons dry seasons don't mean that something's necessarily going wrong, right? We can start there.
Yeah. So let's jump into it. Our question today is, I've been Catholic my whole life, 30 plus years. Lately, I've been having a tough time feeling the desire to have a relationship with God and actually spend time in prayer. Is there a remedy for this feeling? What is it, if so?
Caffeine.
Yeah, that's kind of a little bit of the dryness idea there. Mother Teresa is known for having had a dark night for much of her life where she didn't feel the presence of God, but she knew he was there.
You said dark. What's a dark night? You said use that term.
It's this really rich kid that has a butler and becomes a superhero. The dark night is this time where you experience just this dryness and absence of God. He's there, but you don't really feel anything in prayer. You're not really getting any consolation. Maybe you're even despairing a little bit, but in the end, you do know that God is there. And as you go through the dark night of the soul, it's something that will, in the end, draw you closer to God.
It's a topic talked about in the spiritual exercises, the Ignatian spiritual exercises. And if you haven't heard about it, I highly recommend that you look into it, because it really helps categorize your spiritual life and help you not feel like you're alone necessarily. Because there are seasons, like Father Michael was talking about, of darkness and consolation, where you feel really distant from the Lord, and then you have these great times where you're like, wow, prayer's going really well, I love going to Mass, like I feel like I'm on fire, and then you reach this dry point, and that's normal.
It's absolutely normal. It's not only normal, it's essential. And Saint Ignatius uses the terms about the dark night: consolation and desolation. You said consolation earlier. The alternate to that is desolation, and neither one of these are morally good or bad things. They're just states of affair. And to explain this, imagine God wants you to get across a desert, and or better yet, let's say, let's go across the desert. We can go up the mountain later if we need to, but across the desert, and along the way there are oases along the way. And you need those because you're going to get tired, you're going to get hungry, you're going to get thirsty, you might even get disoriented, and there's going to be a time in your journey across the desert where you just need to rest, right? And he's going to provide this for you. And in our spiritual life, we talk about that as a consolation. The Lord is just doing so much in your life, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is delightful. But if it remains delightful, are you going to move? Mm-hmm. Are you going to leave are you going to leave the oasis to get to the other side of the desert? And so the Lord is going to dry that up from time to time so that you say, this isn't where I'm really meant to be. I need to get up and move again and get farther down the journey. And then when you get exhausted again, I promise you there'll be another oasis there. Mother Teresa was so resilient. She was so strong in her prayer life that she could go 40 years through the journey of a desert before the Lord needed to give her an oasis. Some of us, we feel like we need to get an oasis every week.
Yeah.
but that's unrealistic, and the Lord's not going to allow that. He wants us to grow and mature. And so those periods of time in between the oasis are what we would call the desolation. And that's the time where the most spiritual work actually gets done. When you do a thing because it's the right thing to do, because it should be done, even though you don't feel like doing it, that's when character is built. That's when the greatest virtue is engendered. And that's what the Lord is doing during times of desolation. We should not reject times of desolation. We can always look forward to consolation, but never shy away from diving into the desolation.
And dark night of the soul is a term that sounds really heavy, but in reality, like, darkness doesn't have to be something where it's like, I'm totally cut off from God, I hate religion, whatever. But it can be that like really ordinary feeling of, I just don't want to be like praying right now, and I don't really want to sit down and spend time with the Lord. Like, that's also desolation, right?
I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your normal modus operandi in the spiritual life is really kind of going to be that desolation, because that's the movement forward. And in the spiritual life, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. There's you don't have a static spiritual life. And so in those periods of respite, the Lord is actively working to restore you, but only to prepare you for the next leg of the journey. Looking at it from a perspective of a mountain is sometimes more helpful, because the idea of trudging up a mountain is exhausting, and you get to a plateau and you can rest. But if you get to that plateau and it's just delightful to stay there, you're not gonna move on. So the Lord kind of pushes you through this desolation to continue to grow. So anybody who's suffering desolation, if you're out there and you're like, my prayer life is just hard, one of two things can be happening. One, you're not doing it right. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a second. But two, it could be that this is just where the Lord wants you to make you more, to give you the gift of growth and maturity and the dignity that is yours as a saint of God in baptism.
Well, and back to the question, what is there to do if I don't feel like praying? It's just like anything. You force yourself to do it. Now, some people say, "Oh, Father, that's harsh. It's easy for you to say you're a priest." Like, yeah, but I mean, I have to force myself to work out. I don't do a good job of that. If you want to get better at anything, if you want to practice as an instrument, you got to force yourself to practice. Practice makes perfect.
Well, sometimes I have to force myself to pray too. I mean, it's not just the secular things that sometimes we have to make sure we take the time for that's easier for other people. I mean, for me, I've got prayer obligations, just like everybody out there, I hope, has an expectation for themselves of what their prayer life is going to look like. I got the same thing, and I don't always rise to the occasion. Sometimes I just do it because I know it needs to get done, and I have to reassure myself that that's okay. The Lord's pleased with that too.
I think a key point that St. Ignatius makes in his spiritual exercises is that the Lord gives us the times of consolation, so that when we are in the dryness, you can like look back at it and say, like, I know what it's like to have that good relationship with Christ, to feel close to him. So I just need to like soldier through, push through this period of hard to get to like what lies ahead and to grow closer to the Lord.
And even in the periods of greatest like spiritual ecstasy, it's still nothing compared to what heaven's going to be like. So it's like, okay, I remember it used to be great. It's not great now. But even my memory of the greatest time is nothing compared to what is still ahead. So I'm going to keep moving.
Prior to this podcast, I just forced myself to do something that I've been putting off for months, which was clean and organize my office. There were papers all over the place, marriage files that needed to be and I've been just dreading doing it, but I grabbed a trash can and I grabbed some files and I just went to it. I'm almost done. I had to stop to come in and allow you to hear my mellifluous voice. But after we're done, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do it and I'm going to get it all done. And I find that when we have things like that, there's a task that you have to complete or that you just know, like making your bed, for instance, right? Make your bed in the morning. It's the first decision of the day. That's okay. I did that. I can make other decisions. I can do difficult things. When there's something kind of physical like that just looming over you, it can affect other areas too. And you're just like, and then finally something snaps and you say, I'm organizing all this paperwork. I'm cleaning up. I'm throwing away all the trash that's in here. And it spills over into the other aspects of your life, especially your prayer.
So what really the remedy to this dryness, in a sentence, what would you say? Just pray.
Yeah, push yourself.
Keep praying.
Push yourself.
Yeah.
if you're confident that you have a sustainable for you prayer life, then push through and remain open to the Holy Spirit prompting you in a different direction, to take on a different piety, or to maintain and push through on the one that's tough.
That
Yeah.
would be a topic for a whole other.
Yeah,
Right, because a lot of
podcast
times
episode.
we try to overplan our
Yeah.
prayer life. I remember in seminary, the first Lent, everybody is competing to, who's going to have the more ridiculous penance and, add more prayer, and, saying I'm going to, as a first year seminarian, I'm going to do the whole breviary, even the hours that, there's the daytime prayers that you can only do one of the three. We're going to do all three of those. Going to do a rosary, going to do a chapel to Divine Mercy. And when I say rosary, I mean all 15 decades. And going to get up at 4:30 in the morning and go to the chapel for a holy hour, and going to do all this stuff, and going to not eat meat at all throughout
Wow.
Lent. And then by day 2,
Burnt out.
it's Thursday and they put out the biscuits and sausage gravy, and it's like, never mind.
That's another good thing to consider about your prayer life. What Father Tim is talking about there, and going back to him cleaning his office, is that our prayer lives are active things, and they take maintenance. And you think to yourself, man, I just cleaned my office a week ago, but you did a lot of good work in that time. And so maintenance and tidiness needs to kind of come back around. And so in our prayer lives, we need to reevaluate, okay, is this prayer life working for me? Have I been maintaining it? Do I need a period of like more intense prayer to sort of tidy things up or strengthen things? So the idea that prayer is not a set it and forget it thing. It's a thing it's an organism that you care for, and you have to go back to, just like your bedroom or your office. It's if you're actually doing life in those places, you're going to have to take time occasionally and clean them. And we got to do the same thing with our prayer life.
We can definitely talk more about prayer in a future episode if you want us to. So if you are interested in hearing more about this topic, just send us an email.
I do just want to say one more thing about tidying up. When Father Michael was convalescing, he cleaned out the refrigerator at the rectory, which was great because he got rid of a bunch of stuff that was probably,
I was so bored. I was losing my ever-loving mind.
there was stuff in there with its own ecosystem. Anyway, but he rearranged the doors. And so
Of the fridge?
the other day I went to
The
get
things that are in the door.
Okay.
I went to get my coffee, and I opened the right-hand door of the fridge and reached to grab the milk, but there was no milk. It was
He
all
grabbed the ketchup.
yeah,
and
it was like
squeezed
ketchup
it into the,
and mustard and stuff. And then I opened I'm like, now I got to change my routine, or I have to rearrange and put all the condiments on the other side and move the milk back to the side where it was. Which is more difficult, rearranging all of that or changing your routine?
the rectory war of the fridges.
I don't know.
This is going to
This
be.
is the thing that you
I think
have
I'm
to
gonna
deal with.
I'm gonna become like the old Irish pastors and put a padlock on the fridge so that he can't get into it.
Yeah, because a lock's going to keep me out of the fridge.
Yeah. Well, if you want to hear more about prayer, send us a question. There's a link in the show notes to text us a question, or you can send us an email at podcast@stclaircc.org. Okay.
Hey, are we on Apple Podcasts?
Not yet.
Okay, yeah. Someone was asking me
I-
about that. Said he couldn't.
I saw us on Spotify.
Yeah,
We are on Spotify.
and we're on YouTube.
YouTube, Amazon Music. I think those are the 3 big platforms we're on.
I have one I use here that I've got it on. What is it called?
Pocket Casts.
Yeah.
That's another
Pocket
common
Casts.
one.
That's what I've got.
But Apple is really hard to get on, and I am working on it. But we'll see what happens.
If there's any Apple,
It's really up to the
execs
people,
out
isn't it?
there,
They gotta
but-
y'all got to make us popular. Make us popular enough to get on the Apple.
Yeah, give us some reviews. Okay, let's do rapid fire, which these are never rapid fire. All right, here's the first one. Can you recommend a good spiritual read for pre-Lent?
Yes.
almost anything by Father Jacques Philippe.
So good.
Time for God is a good one. Also, Interior Freedom. Those are good. They're simple
Searching
Interior
for
Freedom's
and
outstanding.
maintaining peace.
and they're real short. They're real thin.
Yeah.
Good books.
He
One of
writes well.
the good things that's come out of France.
The nice thing about reading the book instead of listening to his conferences is that you can understand it more easily. He has such a thick accent. Jose Maria Escriva has, it's not him, but his folks put together a series of books of his like sayings and things that he said, and they're pithy and short, like one sentence, one paragraph long, something like that. The Way, The Furrow, and The Forge are these 3 little books. And they're pocket sized too. You can just stick it in your pocket. I keep one in my car so that if I'm just sitting waiting on somebody, I can open it up and I can just read one of these little sayings. And it gives me something to think about. So I would recommend introducing yourself to that during Lent and maybe taking one thing a day and just going back to it and using it to chew on throughout the course of the day.
Sweet. All right. Favorite gospel and why?
I like Matthew because I think it's got the most details to it. I think it's the first one that was written. I know some.
Does it really have the most details?
It's the longest. Yeah, it's
There's a reason
the Chosen
makes him autistic. It's totally detail oriented. Mine's John. I think it's just the most beautiful, and it's the most divine. It's just beautiful.
Mine is also John. I've prayed with that like every Lent for 5 years and gotten so much fruit out of it. John just has a really beautiful understanding of the Lord.
Well, when you live with Mary, that's what you get.
Also, that. Okay, final question. What are your favorite pizza toppings? Or what are your perfect pizza toppings?
Perfect pizza toppings. Probably a good veiny gorgonzola. That really, really stinky with whatever kind of meat they have.
I can't stop laughing.
Okay.
You don't like gorgonzola?
That's so weird.
Weird pizza. It's strange.
Oh yeah, it smells like feet.
Me,
This sounds like a gross pizza.
Oh yeah,
I'm a pepperoni guy. I like just pepperoni. And I don't like a lot of different meats on the pizza. Give me pepperoni, and I like it with jalapeno or onion.
Oh,
it's so good because it brings the spice out of the pepperoni. Oh, 100%.
Except when the onion is hiding underneath all the cheese and you bite into it and don't know it's there.
No,
you guys are not married. This is very obvious.
Oh yeah, and garlic. Yeah, you got to add garlic, onions, and jalapeno onto the pepperoni
and hot sauce. That's what happened to a lot of the hot sauces from our video from last year. They went on pizza.
They went on pizza.
Oh,
interesting. Yeah. Okay. I personally, I'm a chicken mushroom cheese person.
Chicken doesn't belong on pizza.
Chicken is so good on pizza.
When I say meat, I mean like pork or beef, but not ground beef because ground beef is just weird. So pepperoni, sausage, bacon.
Like a meat lover's pizza.
Yeah.
No. But you just said stinky cheese.
Yeah, no, I like the stinky cheese on there too with all the meat.
He likes foot pizza.
Yeah.
Like just throw a pie on the ground.
Is this why your cats like you? Because you smell?
Ouch.
Sorry.
I mean, they're always
the Truth Unplugged.
They're always sniffing my shoes, so I don't know, maybe.
I'm teasing, sorry.
Watch out. The knives are coming out.
Gosh. Okay. And we're gonna end our episode with your one thing. What's your one thing, Father Tim, you want to share with our
forgot
listeners?
to think of my one thing. So my one thing is going to be a pizza from Sal's. It's on Cedar Crest over in towards Dallas.
Sal's.
Just before you get to Seven Hills. I like the bacon, sausage, pepperoni pizza. They used to slice their sausage like it was, sausage links, and they'd slice it diagonally, put it on the pizza. That was real good, but now they've been crumbling it. So that's hopefully, if Sal is listening, he'll change that. But
just for you.
Yeah, I think they make a good pizza.
All right. Father Michael?
Father Michael's one thing for this week was Kleenex.
Got him.
Yeah, I should have invested heavily in Kleenex before this week.
My one thing is going to be, speaking of Lent, the devotionals, if you're a lady or a man. I think they do men and women devotionals. From Blessed Is She, they do like a daily Lenten devotional that has prayer, Lectio Divina, Vigio Divina, reflections, and it's just a really great way to work through Lent. So keep an eye on that. I think they're starting to sell them.
Blessed Is She for He's?
They do it so they have traditionally done women's devotionals every Lent, and then they added, women have been asking for their husbands to do one, so they added, but they have the CFRs write the man's devotional.
Okay, so it's not like the women are writing devotionals, subliminal messaging for their husbands.
The CFRs.
That's great.
Yeah. They're such a nice manly group of
they're really
friars.
good. Super, super holy guys. Well,
Father Michael, what's your one thing?
my one thing is I got this propane heater. It's been years in the making.
Years in the making.
It's been years in the making. And, I like to sit out on the porch and have cigars. And in the winter, that's hard to do. And for some reason, Father Tim won't let me smoke in the house. He can have his smelly cats, but I can't.
Yeah.
I can't have.
How
cigar.
inconsiderate of
It's
him.
double standards. Anyways, and it's always it's actually a good thing probably because it cuts me back on the number of cigars I smoke. But sit out in the evening and have a cigar. And now I have this great. It's one of these like mushroom looking ones with
the tall one.
Yeah, exactly. But I had to modify it probably dangerously to get it to fit into the porch. Yeah, it's real redneck. Anyways, so now I can sit out there and enjoy the winter 20-degree weather in my shirt sleeves. It's great.
It's so nice.
That's my one thing.
We will link all of this in our show notes if you want to check it out. But thanks for listening. We appreciate you guys. It is because of you that we have a podcast. So that's it for today's episode. We hope you enjoyed our conversation and maybe laughed a little bit.
Guys, please make sure to follow and subscribe and share the Truth Unplugged with your friends. And if you enjoyed today's episode, leave us a 5-star review so that we can reach even more people.
And if you've got questions, you can send them our way via email at podcast@stclarecc.org. Or you can text us a question at the link in our show notes, and we might answer them in an upcoming episode.
Until next time, we hope that you enjoyed this podcast, and we look forward to seeing you this weekend.
Bye.
Ciao.